This is Love Your Villain, where we step into the arena and peel back the mask. The place we stop pretending we're okay and start getting curious about the parts we've been taught to hide. The angry, needy, jealous, anxious, avoidant, addicted, manipulative parts. The part that lashes out or shuts down, pushes love away, isn't broken. It's your story trying to speak. The villain you've been trying to silence is actually the part of you that needs the most love. Here, we don't shame the villain, we listen to it, get raw, intimate, and honest, while practicing being perfectly imperfect. I'm your host, Ila Casselman, and welcome to Love Your Villain.
Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Love Your Villain, where I'm going to be talking a bit more about the villain itself. I will be talking about the villain within us, the villains that we have outside of us that hurt us in destructive, sometimes disgusting ways. And I just want to get really clear about the villain that does stuff to us versus the villain inside of us, because they are completely different. A villain who does something to us will have their own villain inside of them as well. I believe through the research that I found for writing the book, Love Your Villain, that every single person in the whole world has a villain, aka shadow side, and this side of us begins to develop very young. There's a renowned psychiatrist named Carl Jung. He is the first psychiatrist ever to coin the term shadow side, which essentially is the side of us that we were taught by the people that we love the most, parents, siblings, family members, is unlovable or unlikable. According to Carl Jung, the shadow side of our personality starts to develop around 2.5 years of age. When we start forming memories, we develop belief systems around our behavior and how certain behaviors will elicit a negative response from our parent or caregiver, and other behaviors will elicit a positive response from our parent or caregiver. And so we start to link that if I'm behaving badly, I'm going to feel unloved or unliked. If I behave positively, then that behavior will elicit a response that will make me feel loved or liked. Because our parents are the first people in the whole wide world that we form a loving attachment, how they think and feel about us means the world to us. The more that we're labeled a naughty child, the more we will suppress and squash that version of us down, and that becomes part of our subconscious. When it becomes part of our subconscious, it means that we don't want to look at it. We pretend that it doesn't exist. We actually don't know that it does exist because it starts to develop at such a young age that we have no awareness that this is actually happening. But this happens across the board with every person in the whole wide world. When we feel like our parent doesn't love or like us based on our certain behaviors, we will curb our behavior to suit our parent. We will squash this side of who we are into our subconscious, and we will work very hard to not bring it to the surface because we want to feel loved and liked by our parents or caregiver. So this is what psychiatrists believe is the development of the shadow side, aka the villain. I want to take this a step further. My theory is that the villain begins much earlier than that. The villain side of us begins developing as soon as our parent or caregivers label us a bad or naughty baby based on how much we cry, how inconsolable we are once we do cry. And this can happen within days of being born. Initially, when we're born and we cry, it's like a celebration. The doctors, the nurses, everybody in the room, our parents, everyone is hanging on their seat waiting for that cry It's a cry of joy. It's a cry of vitality and aliveness. That initial crying is telling the world, I'm alive. Then we keep crying and crying and crying and crying. Once our parents started labeling us as good or naughty, misbehaved, disobedient babies based on how easy we were to console once we started crying, this is where the parent or caregiver is projecting this idea that only good babies don't cry, or only good babies are easily consoled. Only good babies lay there and smile. A lack of understanding that the moment you're calling your baby a good or bad baby based on how easy they are to console, your expectations of who this baby is that they are a naughty baby because they can't go to sleep. They are a bad child. Just think about this for a minute. 2 days old, and already the parents are like, oh, I can't put my baby down. My baby's fussy. We put these negative labels on these babies when they've barely even started breathing. I think this is really something that parents need to be acutely aware of when they're deciding to have children, is that the crying is a survival form of communication because a baby is completely dependent on the parents or the caregivers. 100% dependent. There is no independence at all. A baby needs their parents and caregivers' undivided attention. I think a lot of people get sideswiped because they don't actually realize how dependent a baby actually really is. And the crying is their only language they have to ask for their needs to be met. So if the response of the parent or the caregiver is, oh, again, or, oh, such hard work, oh, geez, I wish this baby would shut up, you're projecting this negative energy onto that child. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when they're projecting that emotional energy onto their child, it actually affects the child negatively. So our villainous side begins developing at this age in a couple of days after being born. It could be a week. It could be 3 weeks. It really all depends on the level of emotional maturity that the parent or caregivers have. This will determine they handle their baby's crying. Because if you've ever heard a baby bellow out a cry, it is jarring. It's so jarring, it's not even funny. So if you're a parent or a caregiver whose sympathetic nervous system is already at a 7 out of 10, or the baby's come into your life because you and your partner aren't getting on, or you're not emotionally prepared for what it means to be a parent, then you are going to have a very hard time. Your sympathetic nervous system is going to go from 7 to 10 really fast. You're going to go from a person that you thought was pretty even-keeled to now having rage. This, I think, is where mum or dad rage or parent rage, caregiving rage comes from, is the heightened sympathetic nervous system prior to a baby coming into the world, and parents not being fully equipped emotionally for what they're actually walking into. I think that the more we talk about the villain and how the villain develops, the more parents will understand and really take a hard look at their sympathetic nervous system feelings. Like, how are they feeling before they have a baby? If they know that they're feeling like they're 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, they need to start doing some serious self-care to bring down the heightened nervous system, because that's going to be detrimental to the baby. And the baby is the most important person in the family when the baby has been born. They purely rely on the parents for their survival. That's how the villain develops. The villain is also not just somebody to look at as this big, evil, naughty, bad, hard work version of us, but it's also the side of us that comes to the surface when we need to stick up for ourselves. If you're in a dispute or a disagreement with somebody, or someone has attacked you emotionally, verbally, then you're going to feel like that person's a villain to you, and you're going to feel like a victim to their villainous side. If you retaliate or respond in a way that's shocking or jarring to them, then they're going to flip that and project and blame. They will start to see you as the villain. They will feel like a victim to your villainous response. In any miscommunication, if one person has aggressively informed the other person that the way that they treated them or the thing that they said was hurtful or disrespectful or humiliating, then the other person, depending on how they respond to that, will be a villain. Then both people will be victims. The only way to stop being a victim to somebody else's villainous behavior is really to just acknowledge that their feelings are their feelings, that their perception of the story is real for them, and that there's quite likely something that you did do to trigger this hurtful experience that they're having. The mature thing to do under these circumstances is to apologize. The way that we apologize is to say, I'm really sorry for hurting you. That wasn't my intention. The next time this situation comes about, I will endeavor to not say or speak to you that way or undermine you in whatever way, so that the person who was hurt by you can be disarmed. Really, that's what we want to do, is we want to disarm the conflict. We don't want the person who's mad or angry or upset or resentful to have to get into a rage mode to get their point across. Nobody should have to do that. The only reason why people go from 0 to 100 so fast is because they're already in a heightened sympathetic nervous system response. They're already dysregulated. Whatever's going on between you and them has dysregulated them more, to the point where they have to say something. If they don't get the response from you that they need, which is acknowledgement, they want to feel like they've been seen and heard by you, they're going to either avoid you or they're going to react. More often than not, reactions end up in yelling matches or violent behavior, rageful, slamming doors, shoving somebody up against a wall, these toxic forms of communication. Or they will flip it and project whatever it is they don't want to take responsibility for onto you. If they do that, you are in a very emotionally immature relationship and you need to walk away. That villain is most likely never going to change hurting you. They won't stop hurting you. They will continue to elicit these emotional responses from you because they feel more secure when you're insecure. They feel more stable when you are unstable. And that's just really the bottom line. Those villains love instability and chaos. If you think about a tornado, they are the eye of the storm. They're standing still while all of the chaos is swimming around them. They are actually the conductor of the chaos. They have all of the power, all of the control, because you never know how they're going to react. You never know how they're going to respond to anything that you say or do. It makes things very unstable. The ground becomes shaky like a freaking earthquake. You're walking on eggshells. 1 minute you could be saying something to them that's the best thing they've ever heard. The next minute they're just flicking you with their barbed wire tail like a whip. And you're like stunned. What the fuck just happened? Because those people prefer to be the chaotic conductor. They want to be the conductor of chaos because that's where they have all of the control. Then they can start saying things to you like, look at you, look at your behavior, look at how you're crying. What are you crying over? Stop being a big baby. The villain, I believe, is an extremely important part of who we are. I think we've been taught to keep shoving it down so that we don't rock the boat or seem like we're too much hard work, a lot, or crazy. we have been taught to not stick up for ourselves because then our parents would have had to take responsibility for their behavior. Quite frankly, no one really wants to do that. I think the side was never really taught to be loved or liked because that part of us actually has a lot of power. It has a lot of control. It has a lot of security, stability, and divinity. If you harness the energy of your villain side, you most likely will become stoppable because you start to learn to trust the feelings that you get when the villain starts to arise, the intuitive sensations that tell you whether or not this relationship's good or bad for you, whether it's a friendship, a romantic partner, a work colleague, a working environment. Our intuition or the gut feeling that tells you to get the fuck out, that we're taught to abandon and ignore, is a powerhouse. That part of you is the frickin' source of all of your power. It feeds you so much information, and if you stop and learn to listen to it, it will guide you into better relationships, into better life circumstances, into better working environments. It will cause you to ask for bigger and better things. It will change your life in ways that you could never imagine. But most of all, what it does is it builds this core foundation of trust within yourself, where instead of second guessing yourself, you're like, I know this feeling. I've been here before. I recognize it. Oh, you're telling me to get out. You're telling me to confront this person. You're telling me to stop abandoning myself. Oh, okay, I need to stop abandoning myself. I need to stop doing things for other people, even though I don't really want to do them, just so that I can have a minuscule amount of feeling loved and liked by this particular person. But I'm not loving myself or liking myself if I have zero energy, but I'm going to go and hike or hang out with or help somebody move a house because I want that person to love or like me. So I'm putting the love that I have for myself and my own energy and my own health and well-being underneath somebody else's happiness and joy. Abandoning ourselves for the sake of other people, to feel loved and liked by other people, means that we're expecting other people to love us in a way that we can't love ourselves. I really do feel like this is the core of all human suffering. Because the moment that we step out of ourselves and we're asking other people or expecting other people to love us because we can't love ourselves that way, or we haven't been taught to love ourselves that way, then that means that those people can fill our void and make us feel whole, and they can just as easily chip at that void once it's been filled and empty the whole content of the void. More often than not, they will make that void a crater. And whatever you were feeling before they filled the void, you will feel worse than before because you've experienced wholeness at the hands of another person. And the wholeness at the hands of another person means that they have all of the power and the control over you and your happiness. And when you put your happiness in the hands of somebody who has absolutely no idea how to make themselves happy, or at the hands of somebody who is only happy when you're unhappy, you're fucked. You are completely fucked. That person will destroy you, or those people will destroy you. There is no two ways about it. They will strip you down and tear you to shreds. Like a lion and its prey. They will eat you alive. And then you'll blame them for destroying you, because that's what victims do, is they finger point and they blame the people that they've allowed to destroy them because they're the problem. They're actually not the problem. I will get some backlash with this, and that's okay. I'm cool with it because it's true. We allow people to destroy us. Someone won't destroy you unless you allow them to do that. Even if there are circumstances where a villain will absolutely wholeheartedly be abusive, whether it's sexual or violent abuse, the thing with those experiences is that once it's happened and you have somehow escaped or removed yourself from the clutches of that fucking horrible person, the aftermath of that, when you're in the victimization of the perpetrator, and this is the worst part about it, no one else is hurting you after those events, that event, however many times it's happened to you. No one else is hurting you once you've escaped the clutches of that perpetrator except you. You are the only person hurting you after that point, because there's a rumination, there's this traumatization, there's anxiety and depression and emotional upheaval, this lack of unsafety, this, how could I have put myself in that position? How could I have got drunk, allowed that person to roofie me, and then I got raped in the toilets? How could I have allowed myself to stay in this relationship where I now am an empty shell of a human being? How could I have allowed myself to be treated so poorly by my friends that I would rather stay at home and be a recluse than open my heart to other friendships? The level of traumas are so diverse and painful. But trust me when I say this with so much love and compassion, this eternal, deep desire to help people heal from their traumas, because really at the end of the day, the more you stay traumatized and the more you feel abused by these people, the more they've won. That fucking villain has won. That villain is living their best life. They're sitting on a patio somewhere, sipping beer with their best mates, not even thinking twice about the harm, the damage, the destruction, the traumatization that they have caused you. They're not sitting there going, oh, I feel really bad that I really fucked that person up. No, they're not even thinking twice about how much they fucked you up. They got what they needed and they were done with you. It's you who continues to keep the trauma alive. And I know that this is true because this is what has happened. I have been the sole reason that those traumas that I've experienced stayed alive within my cells, because I couldn't forgive myself for putting myself in those positions to begin with. I don't think healing begins with forgiving the person that fucking hurt you. Healing begins with forgiving yourself for putting yourself in that position to begin with, and like trusting that person to begin with, and opening your heart to that person to begin with, and trusting your friends to begin with, trusting that those people were supposed to have your back and they didn't, or trusting your parents to love you unconditionally but they didn't, or trusting your parents that they should have made the relationship work even though they didn't or they couldn't, or trusting your teachers to be respectful, trusting your spiritual leaders to be respectful and to not use their power as a source of manipulation. Like, the only way to stop being a victim to villainous behavior is to learn to love yourself and trust yourself so deeply that you are unshakable. That when you say to somebody, hey, the thing that you just said to me before really hurt me, and if they say, lighten up, don't take things so seriously, you can then turn to them and say, hey, don't gaslight me on that one. Like, that was hurtful. I'm setting a boundary. Don't do that again. And the more you learn to trust yourself in that way, you won't be shaken. When they start to create chaos around you, you'll see the chaos. Instead of it just being a whirlwind of destruction, you will see it coming. You will feel it coming. You will be standing with them in the eye of the storm in their chaos. And they will be like, what the fuck is going on? And then they will feel like they are in the chaos because they don't know what to do with stability. They don't know what to do with security. They don't know what to do with love. They don't know what to do with someone who is so self-assured and confident and humble and strong and not going to take any fucking shit. Trust me, I know. I've been there. Villains hate that because that's what I want for you. I want you to be trustworthy. I want you to be so trusting of your own villain and honor. When your villain starts to come to the surface, it's trying to tell you something, and that if you can listen to what it has to say, it will save you so much grief. It's going to tell you, don't go in this direction, go in this direction. The information that your villain has to give you is next level. I look forward to having more conversations with guests on this podcast where we really dive into hard, raw, intimate, and unfiltered conversation about all the ways that our villain can show up and hurt us or empower us.